Welcome to the Effortless Swimming Podcast. My guest today is Flynn Southam. Flynn, you are one of the up and coming swimmers here in Australia, and I say up and coming. I mean you've made the Australian team on multiple occasions, but some really exciting racing over the last 12 to 24 months, and it's been amazing seeing some of the development in your swimming and getting to the point where you're currently at. So I'd love to talk to you about where you started as a swimmer and how you've got to the point where you're currently at, because I mean you're only 18. You're still quite young in my eyes. I'm twice your age here, but you, I think, really switched on mentally. And just hearing you in interviews, we've been back and forth a bit. It's really inspiring to see someone of your age at the point you're at in terms of your swimming, but also just in terms of mindset and your approach to things. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's pretty cool to be here today, but yeah, it's been a pretty crazy past 12 months, let alone the past 2 years have been, so many highs, ups and downs and all that. But, going away and swimming internationally for Team Australia is something some people can only do once in their life. And, I've already done it like 4 or 5 times now at such a young age. And, I'm so grateful for it. And, it just keeps me hungry. I'd enjoy it so much and just want to keep making those teams and do the best I can and represent Australia the best I can.
Tell me about world champs. So you were there on the first night in the 4x100 freestyle relay and
Yep.
ended up winning gold with the Australian team. I remember watching it and just that whole night going, oh man, this is amazing. Just so many great swims. And it's
Yeah.
just one after the other. And so tell me, what was that night like, being there, the
Oh,
the
yeah.
atmosphere, and then your race as well?
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. And like for me, that feels like almost like a year ago, but it was only a couple months ago because there's been so much happening. But I think it all started the night off with Ariane Titmus winning the 400 free for the girls. And like that was just like such a kick in everyone's step. Like everyone got so G'd up from it. It was just great to see because it's such a highly anticipated race. And then, we had the 400 champion in the women's, and then Sam Short, my roommate over there and one of my good mates, he backed it up and won the 400, which was also another amazing race. And then the girls, 4x1, they do what they always do and smash it. And pretty sure they broke a world record. And yeah, it was just so cool to see everyone firing. Like we had won 3 out of the 5 golds so far of that night. And, when we had our little team huddle before, we're like, boys, like, come on, we've got the Aussie spirit behind us. And, we just wanted to get out there and try and replicate what everyone else has been doing that night. And just that momentum and the team environment kind of just built, and everyone was there competing for not only themselves, but more importantly for Australia. And like, that was just so motivating. And, it was such an awesome experience. And we were like, we would have been stoked with a bronze medal, let alone winning it. So it was such a cool experience.
What do you take away from that? Because to me, it seems like, and when I've been racing as part of teams, it's like there's so much to be said for good team culture, the environment, the and just the enthusiasm of everyone else around you. Like especially at that top level where physically a lot, so you're so close physically, but that
Yeah.
that mental aspect of it is such a big contributing factor.
Yeah, it was so many different learnings about it, like you could talk about the physical side of it, like what I learned in that, like, versing the big Italian boys next to us, and, me being a bit of a smaller, skinnier dude, like getting absolutely pummeled in the wash, but learning how to swim through that. And, you know, doing the changeovers in such a high pressure situation, it's like one of the biggest events on the swimming program, the men's 4x1 free relay. So, it was just learning about how can I bring the best I've got to the table. And, we kind of all said to each other, like, if we can, Jack Cartwright led off, and then I think I went second, and then Kai Taylor was another young gun. He went third, and us three boys just said to each other, if we can get Kyle within a whiff of the anchor swimmer for all the teams, like we should have it in the bag, because he's just so reliable. Because he's been on the relay team. His first team was 2015 Worlds. He was telling me he got on the 4x1, and it definitely didn't go as well as how our relay went. But I think they ended up missing the final. So, there's so many different learnings whether you win or you lose, I guess. what I'm trying to say is just like, just Kyle, he has the experience and the leadership, and he helped us younger boys, and Jack too. Big shout out to the two older boys. They, helped us through the marshalling room. There's so many different things we learned from that, me and Kai, and probably almost, if not better than getting a gold medal. Michael Phelps was in the presentation room for the medals, and he comes up to me and Kai, and he's like, oh, he's just like big hand and a big handshake. Just said like, hi, I'm Michael, and me and Kai looking at our hands like that for like the next hour, and just so like buzzed up. So it was so cool. It's just the best experience ever.
That's awesome. Back in, I got to check the dates. It was early 2000s. Michael Phelps and Bob Bowman came and did a clinic in Melbourne just after World Cup, I think it was, and this was like just as Mike was really starting to become well known. It was like probably
Yeah,
probably a year or two before he really started to get really well known. But in the swimming world, everyone sort of knew who he was because he was already pretty successful at that point. And I remember going to that clinic and just thinking it's so cool to be around someone like this. And this was before he was who he was.
yeah,
And then my friend's dad was actually kind of help managing him when he was there in terms of like make sure he gets to the pool and all that sort of stuff. And we ended up having breakfast with him at the hotel, and I was so nervous. I don't think I asked him a question. I didn't say anything because he's like this, this big swimmer, and
yeah,
we didn't say anything. He was trying to it's like getting water from a rock. He was trying to get us to talk a bit, but we were just so nervous. And
yeah,
but the one thing I got from meeting him was that like we asked him, "Oh, what'd you do today?" He's like, "I just played PlayStation." I'm like, "Oh, he's like
yeah,
us, I was
yeah,
young at the time. I was like, "Oh, it's so cool. He plays PlayStation." So I just
yeah,
remember that and thinking that like it, people are like everyone's the same. Basically, like, we're all just normal people. But
yeah,
some people just really commit themselves to something and become great at it. What
for sure.
for you? Like, when did you feel like you could really make swimming the thing that you do? What age?
I guess I've always kind of believed in myself that I could make it to an Australian team and, win a medal at world champs. And, I've got so many more things I want to achieve in my mind before I've said I've made it, I guess. But I feel like I've always kind of believed I could do that, but it was just about actually doing it and having the work ethic to do it. I think everyone should believe in themselves that they can do anything they want. But I mean, just because you believe in yourself doesn't mean it'll happen. You just have to work incredibly hard and make a lot of sacrifices for it. And I probably learned that you need to make the sacrifices around probably 13, 12, 13 years old. And yeah, I've pretty much been the same since then.
Was there a certain thing that happened, or there was a time where you started to realize that?
Yeah, well, I think my coach Xander Hay, he coached me a few years ago, still at the same club now. He pulled me and another pretty talented swimmer aside out of our like junior program training session once. And this is, yeah, when I was 12 or 13. And he pretty much he said the quote, like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that, like, his message was pretty much saying, like, the two of you are pretty talented, but, you're not really hard workers. And I guess no one's really a hard worker when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. He's still learning how to swim, I guess. But I guess he saw the talent in me, and then it kind of made me reflect and be like, hey, it would be a bit of a waste if I didn't, you know, live up to my talent, I guess. And, I was really passionate about it, still am really passionate about it. And I kind of just thought to myself, like, why not give this thing a crack, and why not me? I guess that's the saying I always tell myself, why not? Like, why can I not go to the Olympics, and, just stuff like that for a bit of belief.
Was there a certain race or a time where you felt like it confirmed that I can mix it with these top boys in the sport?
I think I was what immediately comes to mind is I think I was like 11 years old. It was 100 free for like school states or something like that. I don't even remember, but I came close to this kid who was like the it kid of the age group swimming back then, down in Sydney for school states. I went 101.9, I think, and did like a massive PB. And, a few people were like, wow, these two kids are super fast and for their age and all that. So that was kind of like, that kind of catapulted me into being like, wow, I'm actually, half decent at this. And then I guess maybe when I was 15 at States one year, I broke Kyle Chalmers' Australian record in the 100 free for 15-year-old boys. I went 49.6, and that was like a real, like, the hard work I've put in actually, like, you put two and two together, you put the hard work and the belief together, and, it comes out pretty good. And for me, I never really looked back from there.
Mm. I think I remember seeing that either someone like sent it to me back then as like it was like a swim article on it or like that. Your swimming, I remember going, holy crap! Like that is so fast. It's like, and I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that race was maybe recorded too, and I think I watched it. So it's just cool to see, in that period of time over the last couple of years, where you've got to. So it's and that tell me about that 47.7 that you did at trials for world champs. So were you expecting or hoping to go that fast? Did you feel like you had that in you?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing because leading into that meet, my 200 that entire season had been on, all throughout in season. I was dropping 146 low a couple times, untapered, unshaved. And then I, show up to trials on day one and I'm like, I'm going to try and win this 200 free and do a really impressive time. And I kind of just swam with the weight of the world on my shoulders, thinking that I needed to be perfect in this race and this 200 needs to be perfect. And funny story is I almost missed the final and then did the final. Wasn't a very impressive time. It was probably like PB plus 1.3 or something. In my mind, I choked the race. I think physiologically I was there. I would have been, you know, could have been the best swimmer in that race, but my mindset kind of held me back that day because, I built it up in my head too much and pretty much spoke to my coach afterwards, Chris Mooney, and, we were really disappointed, but, the 100, I'm, still pretty good at that. So we were kind of like, all right, let's just go for this. And I got fifth in the 200 and they take the top six in a relay. They can take up to 8 in the relay, but usually they'll take the top six and rest the 4 fastest swimmers and swim the 2 heat swimmers or something like that combination. But, I got fifth and Chris said to me, he was pretty much like, don't consider yourself on the team. Swim like you've got no expectations of making a team or anything like that. Throw that out the door, but just tell yourself you're not on the team. And that last, 20, 15 meters of that 100 free, be like, this is like do or die now. So, it was a pretty, back against the wall kind of swim, and to drop such a impressive time by my standards, it was a pretty exciting thing. And, pretty, it's hard to explain because it was such a, emotional roller coaster. That was day 3 of trials, the 100, but day 1 was the 200 free. And, it was just like, I just want to go home. I'm not going to make the team, like all this stuff, like the self-talk starts to creep in, but that's where you
Mhm.
really have to take, your accountability for yourself and kind of quiet those voices down that go on in your head and tell yourself that, you've done the hard work and you've made all the sacrifices and you just have to go out there and swim and race. And that's one of the best things I can do is just go and race and turn emotion and kind of adversity into passion and success, I guess. So it was
Mm.
about me turning that loss and making it kind of a comeback story in my mind. So yeah, that was pretty much it for me. And it wasn't really expected to go that time. I obviously want to go that time, but based on my form, I guess, in the first half of the meet, it wasn't really expected.
Mm. Well, how do you balance? Because you came home so strong in that 100,
Mm.
that last like 25 just monstered home, and like another couple strokes and it would have been on the touch with Kyle there. How do you balance the staying relaxed enough to keep your technique and not muscle your way through the water when you're thinking, all right, it's do or die? Like
Yeah.
how how do you balance that line?
Yeah, that's the question everyone wants to know, I think. And I think the best swimmers in the world have cracked that, and that's how they do the 46.9s and the 46.8, I guess, if you're David Popovich. But I think that's the thing I'm looking for at the moment, and I'm definitely getting there because a lot of my swimming doesn't come from skills and muscling it and that fast twitch sort of stuff. more the technique and the connection and the flow, I guess. So for me, it kind of all starts behind the blocks and in the marshalling room. I guess the moment you step foot into the arena, it's about staying calm in your mind and getting into that flow state, which is what I kind of believe to be like that 7 out of 10 intensity in your mind. You don't want to be like, this is do or die, like grit your teeth. You know what I mean? You don't want to be
Mm,
super mentally aroused, I guess, but you don't want to be like, oh, I hate swimming, I don't want to do this, rah rah rah. So for me, it's finding that like nice middle point of emotional kind of stability, and
mm,
then it's just about letting I kind of like thinking that us athletes are artists, and that we're like, what we do is art, and it's for the entertainment of others. And you don't have to entertain yourself. You don't have to get caught up in the storyline whether you'll make the team or not. You can just go out there and do your thing, and at the end of the day, whatever other people think of you is whatever. But you just have to do your best, and that's all you can ask for. But yeah, it starts with my ritual of getting into the flow state, and that's behind the blocks where I do my pre-race ritual. Splash the water and do some claps and all that, and that's me telling my body and my mind that it's time to create some art.
mm. And are you doing that in training, or that's just like in racing? That's just the ritual you've got, and so you basically that's when your body just knows, all right, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would consider myself, a lot of people speak whether they're a trainer or a racer, and I know me, I'm a racer, so for me, it automatically just clicks in on race day. But the concept behind it is just, getting into that nice state and that flow state and the technique and the connection and all the, aspects of that. It's,
Mm.
yeah, it's challenging, but when I show up on race day, I know that I've put the work in, and, I can do something special.
Let's talk about technique. So one of the things that I'd love to dig into is technique, and you've got a great hold of the water.
Yeah.
What are some things over the last couple of years that you've had to focus on, and that you feel like you've either had to change as part of your stroke, or really just develop to get to where you currently are?
So all of it really comes from your body position in the water and your front catch, I guess. For me, growing up, I was tall, but I wasn't insanely tall, and I was, strong, but I'm not, the level of strength of some of the other guys. And, I've never really been that good at underwaters or turns or dives. So I had to look at it with a bit of logic and be like, hey, I've got really long arms. My wingspan's 2 meters on the dot. I'm 190 tall, 190 centimeters tall. So I got to use my frame and my arms to my advantage. And that for me looks like getting a high elbow catch and, reducing drag. And then when it's time for gym work, it's all about trying to increase propulsion. So then when I come into the pool and I work with my biomech, we look at kind of trying to be like as straight as an arrow, trying to go through the water and as streamlined as possible. So, that's different for everyone. And sometimes the loping stroke, breathing twos works. And sometimes, just having your head down and, a bit more thoracic rotation works for the people like me. So I guess it's all about finding what works for you, and, just working on it every day. But for me, it's about that front end catch, harvesting, yeah, I guess using my long arms, and then getting strong in the gym, which is what I'm working on at the moment.
What sort of stuff you're doing gym wise to develop your strength?
Yeah, so we do a bit of a split of upper body power, upper body strength, and lower body strength, and a lot of shoulder stability and rehab, sort of prehab sort of stuff. So we don't, you know, stay injury free. That's the goal. A lot of core, a lot of functional movement sort of stuff. There's the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle. Joe Coyen, he is like a wizard. He knows this stuff. I reckon he's one of the best in the world at his job. He's worked with the MMA, UFC dudes in China, and Xu Jiayu, the backstroker, Chinese backstroker, and he worked with Chin Haiyang a bit. So he knows his stuff, and we're just so lucky to have him at Bond because he's a wizard. And I'm sure if you asked him, he could give you a whole big list and what we're doing. But my job is just to lift a lot of weight and get strong. That's my answer.
I mean, that's the thing, right? You don't want to have to think about more than what you need to. It's just
Yeah,
you
no.
just get out and do your thing. Uh,
Yeah.
do you ever go into training heavy from the gym, or is that something that you like try and avoid? Like, how is it for you?
Yeah, well, Joe, he's got a saying, if you fly too close to the sun, you're gonna get burnt. So, it's really good that we go hard in gym, but sometimes if we go like too hard and we end up injuring ourselves, or we show up to training sick the next morning, because us boys, we go pretty hard in gym, like we're all really committed to it. So yeah, the saying is you don't want to get burnt from the sun, and you want to use this to, increase your swimming performance. So it's a fine line between taking it too easy but going too hard. But we have like a lot of
Mm.
like all of our gym is prescribed with the weights and the rep count and everything. So we just have to do that. And reality of the situation is some days you're gonna be sore as hell, and some days you're gonna feel like, wow, this is put a kick in my step, and I feel good. I could do a suited set, quality set tonight, and smash out some PBs. But it's just about managing that, I think, and not getting too caught up if your arms are sore or you don't have that feel for the water. It's just about going through the process.
Mm. Yeah. What about favorite sets? Are there any main sets that for you feel like that number one you enjoy, and number two you feel like prepare you really well for racing?
Yeah, so the one that would prepare me really well for racing, so I guess that's the one I probably enjoy the most. We do a lot of dive 50s. We suit up 3 times a week. It's all about physiological gains, increasing the anaerobic capacity. So pretty much 30 seconds or less worth of high intensity sprint work. That's what we do. And it's, a typical Chris Mooney set would be like 6 times through dive 35, dive 50, maybe 5 times through that. And it's all about, just a high velocity output and great skills under pressure and increasing the anaerobic capacity. So, you show up on race day and you go out. We don't actually do much back end work at all. Like, we don't do push back end speed or anything like that because one, Chris doesn't believe in it. And two, if you think about showing up to race day and swimming the 100 free, which is what I want to target, you show up and think about diving in for the first 50 and going 7 out of 10 and trying to turn in 23.0. If your 50 PB is 22 high, then that's going to have to be higher than a 7 out of 10 to turn that fast. But if your 50 PB is 21 high or 22 low, which is where I'm trying to get, that 7 out of 10 is more realistic, and you don't actually have to, muscle it and be fatigued by the time you get to the wall. Do you know what I mean by that?
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. To get that easy speed at the
Yeah.
start, you got to be quick. you got to
Yeah,
you got to be quick
exactly.
over that.
And then you pair that and you massage that in with aerobic conditioning that we do. So pretty much every second morning or every morning, we'll do a lot of, not threshold work because that uses a lot of glycogen, as Chris would say. So, it's more just low intensity A1, A2, neg split, stroke count, a lot of that sort of stuff to actually work the efficiency. And, you have that aspect, the actual conditioning purpose of the day. And then we have the technical aspect, which is, my front end catch and keeping my hips still and, head neutral, thinking that you're getting pulled by a fishing rope, kind of fishing line from like the top of your head. And then just trying to get as skilled as I possibly can. So that's pretty much what like, my favorite set looks like because it's a killer. People say sprinting
Mm.
isn't hard, but when you're sprinting with your head down and trying to, be the best you can be, with your conditioning and capacity and all that, it's bloody hard. And you get to the end of the third or fourth 50 and the time cycle's on 4 minutes and you're just like, you just want to like vomit, your lactate's through the roof. But you just got to keep working, I guess, and keep grinding away at it.
Are you swimming down in that set, or it's just all like walk back?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all
All
walk
walk back.
back and just let that lactate get as high as you can. And the better you can deal with that lactate and push through, I guess, and still hit those times within, zero point 0.5 of. So for say, I'll start a set, I'll start around 22.8, 22.9 for a dive 50. I don't want to be going any slower than 23 mid by the 650. If we do 650s on 4 minutes,
Yeah,
so
wow.
that's the goal.
That's it. We had a camp in Thailand 2 weeks ago where we call it last one standing. It's
Yeah,
850s dive walk back on about a 5 minute cycle, and
yeah,
we're doing it with people who would typically never do that sort of stuff. Most
yeah,
of them are like aerobic based athletes, a lot of triathletes, and they were absolutely buggered at the end of it. Like 8 dive
yeah,
50 walk backs on 5. It's a 40-minute set. You swim 400 meters, but you'll be more tired than if you'd done 3100s. Doing like close to
yeah,
threshold. It's like
for
it's hard
sure.
work, and most people, like I say, most people, a lot of the people that I coach will never sort of hit that kind of lactate in their sessions because yes, they're training for something different, and
Different,
you want to
yeah.
be specific with your training.
But it's
Um,
such a good base to have that
mm,
anaerobic capacity.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
exactly
good
right.
thing.
Do you feel like you can like the aerobic work that you do? Do you feel like when you've got a good base of that, you can pull from that in your races? Like, can you feel that the benefit that training has for you?
Yeah, yes, but more so, it's more so the anaerobic capacity work that we do that really helps me in my back ends. Like I
Mm,
said, well, I didn't say it actually. We don't even do over 5K sessions, you know? And everyone has this idea in their head that you need to do distance to, become so fit and come home in a 24 low or even a 23 high or something, which has never been done. But the race only lasts for under 50 seconds and, you're going as hard as you can, I guess. And I guess you don't really go into a different energy system other than your lactic acid system. So, for us, it's just about like that anaerobic conditioning. It's good to have a base, but I feel like the anaerobic stuff isn't really touched on by a lot of people because I think it's so powerful when you really harness that lactate production.
mm. You were saying earlier you do the aerobic base and then you do some of the technique work. Are you what kind of drills, what kind of exercises are you doing to work on your front end catch, work on your hip stability, and those sorts of things?
Yeah. Well, there's just so many little intricate drills that I have that's kind of hard to explain on camera, but a lot of it is like just simple stuff like doing single arm with a paddle in a pull buoy in and just like working like as you would swimming normally, but just with one arm. You do like 100 single arm change arms at 50s, and that will like cook your arm so quickly. Like you wouldn't think it would, but it does. And it's such a good, kind of, it exposes, the little flaws in your technique if you can only swim with two arms instead of one arm. So that's good to do that. But then also, I forgot to mention, we have been doing a lot of drag and resistance work. And I find that, there's this thing called a parachute that I wear, which you've probably heard of before, but for all the viewers, it's pretty much just like a bucket with no hole at the bottom, well, with a hole at the bottom. And it's attached to a rope, which is attached around your hips. And you swim against that and you can change the resistance of it. And sometimes it feels like you're pulling a person through the water, which is really hard. And, we do a lot of sprints with that sort of stuff on. And I find with my hips, which is a weakness of mine, like whether they drop and that creates a bit of drag when I breathe. I find with the drag suit that actually you can kind of feel it. You can feel it slowing you down when you slow down. So yeah, there's little innovative things rather than just like smashing out just Ks, mindless Ks. But, if you do those Ks with good intent and good technique, which is, your message, that's best case scenario, I think.
Mm. Yeah, it's those sorts of drills, even like single arm. It,
Yeah.
it does expose uh, the weaknesses in your stroke. And we even like when we run clinics, we just do a basic like hand on top of kickboard,
Yeah.
45 degrees rotation, and just practice breathing low with that split
Yeah.
vision. And
Yeah.
more times than not, someone feels very comfortable on one side and not on the
Yeah.
other. So
Can't do the other.
I s-
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's just like say to 'em, see if you can figure out the next time we do it. See if you can figure out what is causing you to feel like you are uncomfortable on the other side. And more than
Mm.
likely, they're either like under or over rotated. Maybe they're lifting their head as they turn, or their hand isn't straight. Like there's all these little things that if you can start to become aware of them, and as an elite level swimmer, it's like you become so in tune with these little variations in your stroke
Mm,
that
yeah,
that you just build up this really good innate sense of where your body is and how you're moving, and
yeah,
then you try and just keep on top of it as you're training.
yeah, exactly. And then like you get like the foundation work in when you're a younger kid, and then when you get into your late teens, early 20s, that's when you just look at little one percenters, and 1% at 47.7 for the 100 free is, it's a big margin. It's, the difference between winning a race and coming third or fourth, especially now, like how competitive the 100-meter final is. Like I missed out on the final at Worlds in the 100 by 0.09, I think. So I
Mm.
came 11th, and, top eight gets you into the final. So that's how close it is. 1/10 of a second gets you like three or four swimmers in there. So it's all about finding those little one percenters now.
Mm. Yeah, the drag stuff is the drag stuff that you're talking about earlier is, I think, a lot of fun. We've been doing the poor man's version of it in training. So I part of it like just an adult squad, and we tow each other. We grab onto a leg, the other
Yeah,
person just drags
works the
behind.
same.
And it's like, and you notice it, right? Like when they let go, you feel like you are just motoring through the water.
Fluid lane, yeah,
And yeah, it's a lot of fun as well, and that's a big part of it. Whether you are
yeah,
training 9-10 times a week, or if you're like an adult just just swimming 2 or 3 times a week, it's like you can make it fun. I find that your ability to learn and adapt and and want to come back again the next week is
yeah,
it's hugely motivating when it's enjoyable, and that
yeah,
comes from what you're doing, who you do it with, your coach, and those sorts of things.
yeah,
In terms of
yeah,
your training, have you got a bunch of good mates that you're training with?
yeah. Like I'm one of six boys in the squad, and we're so like all committed to it, and it's so great because none of us are really interested in partying or any regular teenage stuff. We're all there to be the best we can be, and we have a lot of fun, and we get up to some mischief sometimes. But just the boys, a couple of them, Benny Armbruster and Jesse Coleman, they're both 51 mid for the 100 fly, and Josh Collette, he's a 10100 mid, and Gideon Burns, they're the two breaststrokers. They're one low for the 100 breast, and Ferguson McLaughlin is backstroker. So we got like a really good medley relay team kind of coming through. So that's the goal. If we can all snag the boys on to the Australian team for like the LA Olympics, that would be pretty fun. But we're all there to motivate each other and help each other up when they're a bit down and stuff like that. So it's such a good training environment.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know you've been doing a bit of mentoring with like some younger swimmers. What are some of the common things you're hearing from them that they struggle with, and then what kind of advice do you find yourself giving them?
Yeah. So a lot of the time it's really just, these 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. They're really struggling with the pressure that they put on themselves. And,
Hmm.
I can't point the finger at anyone because I'm really guilty of that. Sometimes in the past, I've put my self-worth dependent on my results in the pool, which sounds
Hmm.
like crazy stupid, but it's such an easy path to fall down. And sometimes I need to remind myself, like, not to get caught up in that. And these kids, it's literally like looking into having like a FaceTime session with myself like 5 years ago. It's pretty crazy. But my main message is just to have fun. And I broke my arm when I was 14, I think, and I was about to miss my first stage nationals, which was devastating. I was really sad. Ended up getting cancelled because of COVID. But main point of the story is that I broke my arm, and I realized, like, holy crap, like swimming just got taken away from me for like 4 months. Like, what the hell just happened? It was just a random day at school. I fell over playing basketball and broke my arm, and that was swimming ruled out for a couple months. And I think that was a real eye opener, being like, hey, your time in the sport, like, you've got an expiry date, like a vegetable or something, you know what I mean? Like, it will go off soon, whether you like it or not. So you got to enjoy it and kind of treat every day like your last. So, you train super hard, but you also got to have, a bit of fun as well, and make sure the journey's worth it.
Yeah, that. It seems so young to have that realization, because it's just so easy to get caught up in the day to day, and it's like, all right, I've got to make this team, I've got to do this time,
Yeah,
and then just not step back and just enjoy it, because you as you get older, you kind of look back and go, wow, it was like,
yeah,
to be able to train that much and be that fit, like it's such a great time of your life. But it's like they say youth is wasted on the young. It's just hard to realize that at the time, but to be able to know that the journey is really a lot better than the destination more times than
yeah.
not.
And at the end of the day, like I walk around training now, and no one looks at me and would think like, oh wow, he won a gold medal at world champs. They're like, oh wow, like he's like such a nice friend, or wow, he's a tosser.
Yeah,
Something like people like look at you for who you actually are, not like the medals around your neck. So at the
that's
end of
so
the day,
true.
and it's like swimming is something we do. It's not who we are. And, I have to tell myself that every day. And I struggle with perfectionism. I've got a quote written up above my desk saying success is not perfection. And, like it's just about having fun. And you do this because you love swimming. You don't do this because you don't want to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, you just do it to be the best you can be. And sometimes the best you can be is having a laugh and not being such a crazy athlete that gets caught up in the mental math of it. That's what I call it.
yeah, yeah. And when it comes to racing too, when you see swimmers athletes of any kind, really, when they're having fun, they're generally the loosest. You move better,
Yeah,
and you just get into that flow. But if you're trying to force things,
yeah,
that is when
yeah,
you'll normally don't race and compete that well. So
yeah.
yeah, man, that's great to hear you were able to go through that experience. And often when you look back at things, those more challenging times, there can be some great lessons out of it.
Mm,
I
100%.
look back, and I mean, I saw the same thing with COVID, when I couldn't coach, when I couldn't like do the things that I was doing. I was like, man, okay, I really miss that face to face interaction of working with people. I miss like being able to try and better myself and have a purpose and a thing that I'm working
Mm,
towards. So it's like, yeah, these things that can really suck, and they're challenges. I look back and go, I'm
it's
so glad I
enjoyable.
went through that. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. And I always say that, like, at Junior Worlds, like, not that I really want to talk about it, but I will just for the, point of the discussion we're talking about. I missed the final at Junior Worlds in the 100 free. As at the end of the week, there's 100 different excuses that I could go over, but I missed the final in that. But I almost made the final at World Champs and Senior World Champs. And, I went PB plus 2.5 or something really disappointing. And for me, I learned more doing that horrible time, that horrible experience. I learned more in that than I did winning a gold medal at Worlds. So
hmm.
I always say learning is probably more valuable than, winning all the time. So if you can learn and win, great. But if you have a bad race and you still learn, like it's not all bad.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot more lessons like that along the way. And
Yeah,
but as you sort of get that experience, you can hopefully just make have less and less of those experiences, and it becomes more winning. So yeah, that's
yeah, for
and
sure.
and it's such a we are talking about this before the podcast as well. Those junior world champs are in Israel, 5 weeks or so before everything kicked off. So it's
Yeah,
just like, it really is
bigger than
a
swimming.
yeah, that's right. And it's such a privilege to be able to to be able to do, I guess, do what we do. And that we're very very lucky, and sometimes it's hard to realize that, just when we're in the thick of things. So
Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah, a
sounded
bit of
like a pretty
perspective
crazy
helps.
experience for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm. So what have you got coming up that you're looking forwards to? Got a big next couple of months. You said you came off a break a couple of weeks ago where you're just able to switch off, 2 weeks out of the water, and now you're back into training. What have you got on your mind for the next 6 to 12 months?
No, well, I mean, first things first is, trials next year, Olympic trials. That's a meet like no other, I've heard. I haven't been to one before. So, we're looking forward to that, and we're training for that and making winning a habit. So that's first things first. But if we backtrack from there, there's, Queensland States at the end of this year, which will be a great hit out. And it's such a great meet. I always say Queensland States is like one of my favorite meets because it's just got such a good atmosphere. And everyone's like at different stages, but everyone's like super competitive at that meet because a lot of pride's on the line and it's not super high pressure. So yeah, it's good fun and good racing. And I always find that you learn just as much from Queensland States as a young age grouper as you do from world champs. So
Hmm.
it's great to see all the little kids there as well, like kicking butt. So we got that, and then there'll be nationals and a couple of meets down in Sydney next year. So, just little ones, but the main one in the back of everyone's mind is trials. And the preparation for that starts now, even though it's in June next year, it starts now.
Well, Flynn, all the best for when in the lead up to trials, and it's been great having you on. We tried to do it earlier, but you ended up being pretty busy in between the two worlds. So I'm glad I could get you on. It's been great watching your journey over the last couple of years. I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of years because you've got a great head on your shoulders. Great watching your swimming. Yeah, I love to watch good swimmers, particularly good freestylers. And and it's just really exciting to see what you're doing. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Wish you all the best.